Our Healthy Men is a presentation of the Prostate Cancer Coalition and Rare Gem Productions. The Prostate Cancer Coalition is a coalition of healthcare providers and survivors in the St. Louis region that have come together to advocate smart screening for African American men and men with strong family histories of prostate cancer. The Prostate Cancer Coalition supports the idea that there should be a discussion about the risks and benefits of screening, beginning at the age of 45 for African American men and younger if there's a strong family history. We're here to answer your questions and provide you with solutions and especially options. We want to see you thrive, and we want the best for you, our healthy men. And welcome back to Our Healthy Men, your prostate cancer question and answer show. I'm your producer, Jade Harrell, and we are back. Yes, we are trying to reduce these devastating numbers and the disparities that we're experiencing and seeing in our community. So we've got the best, of course, Dr. Lannis-Hall, Dr. Arnold-Bullock. Yes, we need to talk about risk factors.
Right.
Let's start with risk factors.
So we usually divide risk factors into modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors, and non-modifiable risk factors are those types of factors you can't do anything about. For example, your family is your family. You can't get rid of your family, so
that's get to pick them.
That you don't get to pick them. So that's non-modifiable. So
okay.
Your family history matters, and we know that if you have a first-degree relative, so that's a father or a brother or your son, those are all first degree. If one of them has a diagnosis of prostate cancer, then you are at risk 2 to 3 times greater to develop prostate cancer. So that's a non-modifiable risk factor. And if you have 2 first degree relatives, so let's say you have 2 brothers, or my dad has prostate cancer or my older brother has prostate cancer, then you have a 5 times greater risk of developing prostate cancer.
Because of them? No.
because of your family.
And you can't, yeah.
Age. Mm-hmm. Prostate cancer is not diagnosed commonly in very young people. It is the median age of diagnosis is around 67 years of age. So this is a disease of older men. Mm-hmm. So age increases your risk. That's non-modifiable because you can't all of a sudden stop aging. I'm trying, but you can't do it.
You two seem to defy it. I got you.
And then the last non-modifiable risk factor is your ethnicity and race. You know, whether you're Latino, so that's ethnicity, or whether you're white or African American, you cannot change that. Right. So that's another non-modifiable risk factor, and we know that African American men have an incidence that's 70% higher, and then we said the mortality is 2.4 times greater than white men and 5 times greater than Asian men. So these are the non-modifiable risk factors of prostate cancer.
Why is being black a risk factor, Doc?
Well, you know, there's a lot of controversy as to what's behind it. They have identified breast cancer genes, and so there's probably a genetic basis behind higher incidence and higher mortality rates of prostate cancer in blacks versus whites.
We're more prone to it. Is that what they're saying?
So, you know, it certainly runs in the family, and that's a genetic basis, and genetic basis race also is related to genes. Yeah. But there may be modifiable factors involved also with being African American. You know, we blacks haven't been successful enough for enough generations to rule out our habits. So, like myself, I'm proud to be a second-generation college graduate. My parents graduated from college. They were school teachers, but my grandparents weren't. So my parents, during my upbringing, ate similar to their people before them. You know, they hadn't acquired enough wealth where, you know, we didn't eat Scrabble. I mean, we ate Scrabble. We had our can of Crisco with bacon grease on the stove, and you know, everything was fried. And so I don't know if we have enough population of people to say that our diet could be excluded as a factor, because it's African Americans consume more of fatty products, or a higher percentage of our diet is fat.
And processed foods.
And processed foods than most any other population in the world.
Are we more inclined to that because of heritage, or is that another genetic thing?
It's economic.
Absolutely.
I mean, so we know that when we have more options and food choices and more knowledgeable about what is better for our bodies and able to act on it, we do.
Absolutely. That's where it originated, actually. You know, what was left was what we had.
Right.
So this is where we're talking about modifiable type of risk factors.
Yeah, and the thing, I wish I could say that it's just, straightforward. The data is just so clear that if you eat a low-fat diet, you'll prevent prostate cancer. That data is not out there, but there's just some common sense that needs to go on.
All right, break it down.
And what we know is, just look at it this way. Asian populations have the lowest risk of developing prostate cancer, even when people immigrate or come over to the United States. And we look at their risk for developing prostate cancer, and you compare it to their cohorts and families back in Asia, their risk starts to go up as they develop the environment and the habits of being now an American. Now, they never go up as high as white Americans or African Americans in the incidence and mortality, but it goes up. And so it's interesting that we know that environment really does play a role. I will say that, what's the number one cause of death for men and women? It's cardiovascular disease. So a low-fat diet, and exercising 30 to 45 minutes a day, 5 to 7 days a week is just what we need to do to reduce our risk of several cancers and to reduce our risk for cardiovascular disease, reduce our risk for dementia and Alzheimer's. It just goes on and on, the benefits of exercise and really modifying our diet to 5 to 7 fruits and vegetables and lean proteins. It's just better all the way around. We don't have the data yet that it's just going to prevent prostate cancer, but it's just better for you overall. Reduces your risk of colorectal cancer and all these other cancers that we can say are also equally important.
Well, keep in mind that the studies that were done on these Japanese who migrated to the U.S. as young children, as toddlers, their risk of prostate cancer went up in their first generation in the U.S. We're not talking after mingling with, African, Japanese Americans. We're talking in the first generation transfer to the United States.
They bought that Crisco.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, that indicates that they basically got into an accelerated toxic environment.
That's right.
And so that's concerning because if we're living that every day and have since toddlers, I can imagine why then we have the numbers.
Then you bring up, geographic risk factors and, what's in the news right now is in North County and it's information about the World War II, nuclear storage sites and all. Right. And you say that, unfortunately, that has to play some role too. Right. That when you think of what we're exposed to and our environment, and then you look at populations of people, white and black, based on occupations, based on exposures in the workplace.
Yes.
Cadmium and exposures to other chemicals. What role that play?
Those are things that it's in the modifiable category, but when you think of economics, then you almost feel like you don't have a choice. This is a risk factor that I can't modify.
That's right.
You're almost pigeonholed into that space where I live, the options that are available to me. And you mentioned that earlier, the options that are available to me then create my space of modifiable or non-modifiable risk.
Yeah.
I say we do the best we can. Okay. The common sense things that we can do is at least follow our prevention and early detection guidelines. Our women should have mammograms. Our women and men should be getting colonoscopies and screenings for colon cancer, and then also having screenings for prostate cancer, because these are our big major killers in our community, is colorectal, prostate, breast, and then lung. And obviously most lung cancers, 90%, are caused by tobacco use. So if you're not smoking and not around secondhand smoke, that risk reduction is then there. So you can wipe out a significant amount of our major causes of death related to cancer by early detection and screening tools and the lifestyle changes.
Absolutely.
But that brings up the point. It's hard to separate these modifiable factors. You don't, smoking still is more prominent based on socioeconomic class.
That's right.
And so how do you separate the person who's getting the $1 burger, discount that's not the same quality meat as the $5 burger from the person who tends to smoke to the person who works in the work environment where they're working in an assembly line with exposure to chemical.
That's right.
We see it on each of these banners in the studio. That's where we see it. Yeah. That's where we see the actual difference. But then in the end, it is that awareness and that education in order to respond.
And there's still that one factor that still remains.
What's that?
That despite all of these risk factors, it doesn't mean that you have to succumb to a tumor. You may be more prone to get it.
Yes.
But with today's technology, if you were to participate in preventive health care and see a doctor, not only see a doctor, but see a doctor and see a doctor as an informed individual and say, hey, doc, I'm 51 now. I wonder why you didn't ask me about a colonoscopy last year. Hey, doc, I'm 49. I'm African American. I'm clearly African American. Why haven't I had a PSA yet? Hey, doc, look, I'm interested in great health. If you're a little queasy about doing my rectal exam or worrying how I'm going to take it, I'm going to take it that you're a good doctor. I really, really prefer if you put your finger in my bottom and tell me what my prostate feels like.
That's right, because I want to be an informed,
an educated, educated consumer.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's a great myth buster and a great transition into, let's talk about these myths that are, as we're seeing them as truths, that are myths. Now, address this putting my finger in my butt thing, help the brothers, sisters, whomever struggling with that, get over it.
Well,
once and for all.
It's certainly more prevalent, or the presumption is more prevalent, the resistance by African American and Hispanics, right? The people at the greatest risk of having this cancer.
Right. How horrible is it, Doc?
Come on. It's less than 5 seconds.
This is what I always say.
1,000, 2,000.
No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And it's
done.
over. Okay.
So I always say this, Doc.
I want to be empathetic.
Doctor, your finger's so big. Look, if your average bowel movement is smaller than my finger, you need a colonoscopy sooner than later.
Because something is wrong.
Yeah. Look, if you're worried that my finger exam is so bad that it's going to change your nature, you were already about to fall off the fence anyway.
Your nature was
Yeah, you were already you're already in big jeopardy anyway. Look, so don't be smiling like at me like that, brother.
And essentially that's the thing. A normal bowel movement would take longer and be much larger than what this would entail. This is for your benefit.
I struggle with this.
You struggle with your bowel movements?
No, because it's 5 seconds.
Okay.
It's 5 seconds. We're talking about, understanding your risk and your health, and it's 5 seconds.
We can endure many, many things for flames, underwater, but this lack of oxygen, all of those things for 5 seconds. But the get over it is, it's not that long, it's not that bad, and there could be worse. But in the end,
But it's got more impact than that.
Okay.
And when people try to refuse me to do a rectal exam, the point is, sir, it's a matter of building comfort and rapport between doctor and patient.
That's comfort, all right.
And if I can say, sir, look, this is a finger exam. Would I take care of your high-end car if you wouldn't let me check your car and do a evaluation of your car so that you don't end up on the road and be stuck? And you say, who's your doctor? Who's your mechanic?
Sure.
I'm not going to have people be in my patient and say that my doctor is Dr. Bullock, and lo and behold, someone else finds that they got a bladder cancer. Someone else finds that they have a prostate cancer. Why didn't Dr. Bullock find that?
More. So, and that goes back to being informed and being proactive, too.
And if I can get to the point of saying, sir, I'm trying to be a good doctor. And, I say this all the time. Look, there's no cameras, and trust me, I'm not going to put you on the internet telling how I did your rectal exam.
Right.
Nobody's that interested. I do exams all day long. Yeah. Like a brother today. I'm doing a vasectomy, right? Sorry. We can go in the room, right? And so, because I got to make it here, right? So usually when I walk in the vasectomy, the guy's already undressed. He's covered up. So we get ready to walk in the room. Me and he's like, wait, I'm undressed. I said, dude, we about to look at your balls in a second. Did you forget that you're in the urology room and we're about to have your penis exposed? I'm like, I thought that was funny. Know about that. That's funny. Like, we're laughing too.
And the other thing, though, when we think of our gynecological exams, way more expensive, not to be unsympathetic.
I stopped saying that when I first came out of training, and I was practicing, and these men really were struggling. They were struggling first. You're the first woman that's going to examine me. Oh. So that was one issue. And then, do we really have to do it? I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. Yeah. Do we really have to do it? And I used to say, okay, let me just tell you what women have to do. And I would then go through, stirrups and equipment and speculum. But I stopped saying that because there was just no sympathy.
Yeah, that's right.
They're like, that's y'all. You give birth.
That's right.
You, right? We don't have to do that.
Like, you do you, but that's why I'm a man. So, at this point, I really do just want to talk them through it because I have some patients who legitimately are horrified by the exam. I don't know why. Yeah, I have a young man. He did a tour in Iraq. He's now a police officer.
Hardcore.
I treated him for prostate cancer 4 or 5 years ago. He still screams when I come in the room, oh, Lord, we got to do this. It's just, and I just have to say that some men do, you got to work through it. You really just have to work through it because there's a phobia.
Be encouraged, my brothers. Be encouraged because you will get through this and you will endure. Okay, I'm going to run a couple of terms by you guys as we're coming to a close to address some possible myths. Diabetes mellitus.
Diabetes mellitus.
Diabetes mellitus. That's yours, then I'm throwing it to you.
No, it's just a question of, do people who have diabetes have a higher or lower incidence of prostate cancer? And there's just been some studies that have shown that there's a lower incidence and it might be related
to... And the myth there is...
Well, it's not a myth as much as is, why is that the case? We're not quite sure, but there's just a relationship. The same, one of the others is, does vasectomy increase your risk for prostate cancer? And I think
that's been excluded.
You went out and excluded that, right.
And just testosterone replacement therapy is a big one, and I would say that the data doesn't support it, that it increases your risk of prostate cancer.
That's right. But one of the requirements of a person getting testosterone replacement, if you're out there getting testosterone, someone needs to do your rectal exam and you need to have a PSA done routinely, if not every 6 months, at least every year. That's the reason why testosterone's a controlled substance. You can only write for it for 6 months at a time.
Wow.
So any drug that you can't write for years refills, there's a reason why the FDA, they're trying to tell you something, that there's some risk involved and you have to monitor it closely.
Yeah, fantastic. And how about chronic inflammation? I'll toss that to you.
Well, there's prostatitis, which is, you can have chronic prostatitis. There's no evidence that chronic prostatitis increases your risk per se, but the feeling is that people who have chronic prostatitis probably see a urologist on a more regular basis. So if you took a group of 1,000 men who didn't have prostatitis and 1,000 men who did have prostatitis, the 1,000 men with prostatitis are certainly seeing a urologist. So if anyone's getting screened, it's those men.
Okay.
And so sometimes it's not that the prostatitis increases your risk of cancer. It's just that as a population, you're more likely to be screened.
Excellent.
Just like millionaires.
Yeah.
The millionaires, in order to keep a $10 million life insurance policy, they guaranteed they're going to want you to come in and get tested every time you think you want to re-up on that.
Yeah.
So that person's being screened closer.
Absolutely.
So he could have more rare diseases picked up only because he's being screened more often.
Sure. I love that. In synchronicity. So stats and facts, takeaways for you today?
That times have changed. We've made amazing progress. The prostate cancer mortality has decreased 40% from when we talked about people presenting with metastatic disease. A third of white American men and 2/3 of African American men, and today less than 5% presenting with metastatic disease. We have made progress, but we still have a long way to go. We said that African American men have a 70% higher incidence and a 2.4 times greater mortality still, despite that improvement. So how do we reduce that? We realize that if it's detected early, survival is outstanding, excellent. And so we got to talk about screening and how to do that. That's coming up. But the whole point is we want to keep this train going forward.
Absolutely. Your takeaway, Dr. Bullock.
So, ditto.
What she said.
There's modifiable factors that we need to try to improve upon. And they're not just for prostate cancer. It's our diet and our failure to exercise that plays a key role in our higher death rate. I don't care why people die. I think it should be bad to think that you have a higher risk of dying younger than the guy next to you. And some of it we can control. So if we were to exercise, if we were to cut back on some of the processed foods and some of the fatty content of our diet, we would live longer from a cancer point of view and even more so from a cardiac point of view. So we are at a higher risk of prostate cancer and other cancers. And we can't change our father. We can't change where we work for the most part, and many times we can't change where we live. But we can eat better, we can exercise, and we can vow to see a doctor on a regular basis and not just see a doctor. There's different qualities of doctors. You have to go in and be informed. You have to put your doctor on point and say, I refuse to let you charge me for a 2-minute visit. And now I'm going to call that an acceptable doctor's visit.
And you didn't touch me.
And you didn't touch me.
See?
That's no good. Every 3 months just to check my medicines and check my vital signs?
Yes.
I wouldn't accept it at a restaurant. I don't think you're supposed to accept it from your doctor.
No,
Absolutely.
and you're paying insurance.
And you're paying insurance. We will continue this conversation on our next episode of Our Healthy Men. Dr. Arnold Bullock, Dr. Lannis-Hall, thank you both again for your contribution. Knowledge is power, and we will be informed and empowered on this program. We'll talk to you next time. I'm Jade Harrell. Take care. Our Healthy Men, the Prostate Cancer Question and Answer radio show. The Prostate Cancer Coalition emphasizes the significant advancements in the detection and staging of prostate cancer, and that PSA is just one of many options available to help you make an educated decision. The Our Healthy Men radio show is made possible by Siteman Cancer Center and the Barnes Jewish Foundation, with your hosts, Dr. Lannis-Hall, radiation oncologist with Siteman Cancer Center, and Dr. Arnold Bullock, urologic surgeon with Washington University. I'm producer Jade Harrell. To listen to the full episodes, for resources, to find a doctor, or to learn about events and free screenings in the St. Louis region, visit prostatecancercoalitionstl.org. And of course, we want to hear from you. Send us your questions, your comments, and especially your personal story, knowing that yours can be a help to others. Our Healthy Men is another positive production of Rare Gem Productions. Thanks for listening. The Siteman Cancer Center is a proud sponsor of the Our Healthy Men radio show. Siteman Cancer Center, national leaders in cancer, whose mission is to prevent cancer in the community and transform cancer patient care through scientific discovery, one patient at a time. Learn more at siteman.wustl.edu. Stay connected on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Pinterest. Phone number 800-600-3606. The Foundation for Barnes Jewish Hospital is a proud sponsor of the Our Healthy Men radio show. The BJH Foundation supports the world-class health organizations of St. Louis, Barnes Jewish Hospital, Barnes Jewish West County Hospital, Siteman Cancer Center, Goldfarb School of Nursing at Barnes Jewish College, BJC Home Care and Hospice, Evelyn's House, and the Washington University School of Medicine. The largest charitable foundation in St. Louis and the largest private donor to Washington University School of Medicine, supporting research, grants, educational programs, and endowed chairs. Learn more at foundationbarnesjewish.org. Stay connected on Facebook and YouTube. Phone number 314-286-0600.